"Take my baby. Let her live," she cried. The rancher lifted them both and faced the whole town. The storm hit the valley like a living beast, dragging a wall of white across the plains and throwing it against the old log cabins of Crow Ridge with a force that rattled windows and made even seasoned ranchers shiver. The morning had started calm, an empty sky, a slow dawn stretching over the mountains, but by midday, the wind was howling so fiercely it erased the tracks of horses the moment they were made. Most folks stayed inside, huddled around stoves, praying their roofs held strong. But on the far side of the fence line that bordered the Dalton Ranch, something moved through the snow with the weak determination of someone who had almost given up. A small, thin figure, half stumbling, half waiting, fought the wind, with an infant wrapped in torn cloth pressed tight against her chest. Her dress was ragged as though torn by weeks of hardship. Her hair, soaked and frozen in strands, clung to her face, and her lips were purple as she breathed out icy fog. She wasn't from Crow Ridge, no one in town looked so starved or worn, but the desperation in her step spoke of a mother, driven far beyond exhaustion. She reached the fence before her legs buckled. The baby let out one thin, weak cry, just enough to call the attention of the man who had been crossing the yard moments earlier. Jonah Dalton stopped mid-step, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a thick brown coat, and wearing the black hat nearly every man in Crow Ridge recognized before they recognized him. He narrowed his eyes through the blowing snow and saw her collapse against the rails. He moved fast, boots crunching through the drifts. The boy trailing behind him, Evan, no more than 6, hurried to keep up. Jonah reached her just as she slid down the wooden post. "Ma'am?" he said, crouching, his voice rough but not unkind. "You're hurt." "Hey, stay awake." She blinked up at him with eyes wide from cold and fear. Her arms tightened around the tiny bundle as though she thought he might take it from her. "Please." Her voice cracked, barely a whisper. "Take my baby. Let her live." Jonah felt something shift in his chest, something heavy and inescapable. This woman wasn't just cold. She was dying. He could see it in the way her hands trembled without strength, in the sinking of her shoulders, in the faint blue shade of her skin. She'd been out here far too long. The woman rocked her baby, whispering faint prayers as though the storm itself were listening. In that moment, the rancher realized he wasn't just sheltering a stranger. He was standing at the beginning of a battle the entire town of Crow Ridge might soon be dragged into. And when the knock finally came, hard, echoing, demanding, Jonah's hand dropped to the grip of his rifle. His eyes narrowed. The storm had delivered more than a mother and her child. It had brought a war. Crow Ridge was the sort of town where word spread faster than the wind. By sunrise, every porch, saloon, and mercantile doorway buzzed with whispers about the stranger carried into Jonah Dalton's cabin the night before. Folks claimed she was a thief, a troublemaker, a runaway, a sinner, anything rumor could twist her into. The truth didn't matter. What mattered was fear. And fear grew like wildfire in a place already built on caution. Jonah had expected some pushback, but not the kind he found when he rode into town that morning, carrying both the woman and her baby in the back of his wagon. The storm had weakened her badly. Her breaths had grown shallow. Her hands kept slipping from consciousness. Jonah kept glancing back at her, jaw tightening with each mile. He needed a doctor, and the only one within 20 miles was in Crow Ridge. When he reached the main street, people stepped off the boardwalks and stared. Some murmured, some scowled, but most simply watched with that cold, judgmental look towns get when they've decided outsiders aren't welcome. Jonah ignored them. He lifted the woman gently from the wagon. She clung to her baby as if the townspeople themselves were the danger. Evan followed quietly, clutching the hem of Jonah's coat. Before Jonah reached the doctor's porch, Sheriff Brackett blocked his path. A wide man with a badge polished so bright it reflected sunlight. Brackett always held himself like he owned the dust under his boots. "Morning, Dalton," he said, eyes flicking to the woman. "Heard you took in some trouble last night." Jonah didn't stop walking. "Step aside, Brackett. She needs a doctor." The sheriff's hand landed on Jonah's chest, firm, unmoving. "Hold on. Folks say she's bringing heat from outside. Men looking for her. Dangerous men. Town doesn't want that." Jonah's eyes hardened. "Town doesn't get a vote." Brackett smirked. "It does when I'm the one keeping order." The woman shivered violently, leaning her head against Jonah's shoulder. The baby let out a fragile cry. Jonah took one slow step forward, forcing Brackett to move or be run down. "Get out of my way." The sheriff hesitated, not because of Jonah's words, but because he saw something in Jonah's eyes, a cold promise that he wasn't bluffing. Brackett stepped back, hiding his discomfort behind a fake smile. "Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you." Jonah carried the woman inside the doctor's office. Dr. Halden, old and sharp-eyed, wasted no time. He examined the woman carefully while Jonah paced like a caged wolf. "She's half-starved," Halden muttered. "Frozen hands, bruised ribs, and she's been walking for days. Will she make it?" Jonah asked. Halden's sigh was not encouraging. "I'll do what I can." While Halden worked, Jonah knelt beside the baby, watching her tiny chest rise and fall. She was stronger than she had been the night before, but still fragile. Fragile in a way that made Jonah clench his teeth in helpless anger. The door suddenly burst open. Group of townspeople flooded in, 3 men, 1 woman, all with fear hardening their faces. "Dalton," one man snapped, "you can't bring this on us. If someone's hunting that woman, they'll burn our town to the ground." "Better she dies than all of us," the woman added. Before Jonah could speak, the doctor barked, "Out! This is a clinic, not a saloon brawl." The crowd ignored him. Jonah rose slowly, towering over the group like a storm given human shape. "You're afraid," he said quietly. "Fine, fear's natural, but you're not putting that fear on her or the baby. We're protecting our families," another man growled. "Then protect them by helping, not by abandoning people who need you." The group murmured angrily, but none dared step closer. Jonah's presence alone kept them back. Minutes later, the church bell rang, an emergency meeting. Within an hour, the whole town had gathered. Jonah stood alone in front of them with the woman, sitting weakly on the wagon behind him, the baby in her arms. A sea of faces stared back, angry, frightened, judgmental. Jonah could feel it like heat on his skin. The sheriff stepped forward. "Dalton," he called out, "Courage needs to decide what to do about this situation. You're asking us to risk everything for someone we don't know." Every pair of eyes turned to Jonah. He lifted the woman carefully into his arms and stepped onto the porch so everyone could see. The wind whipped around him, but he stood tall, holding not just the woman, but her child, as though daring anyone to try and take them. His voice rang across the square, deep and unwavering. "You all know me," he began. "I've lived here my whole life, worked beside you, bled beside you, buried my kin in this soil, and you know damn well I wouldn't bring danger to your doors unless I had no choice." He looked down at the woman in his arms, so pale, so exhausted she could barely lift her head. This woman walked through a blizzard with a newborn. Ask yourselves what kind of terror makes a mother do that. Silence spread across the crowd. Jonah continued, "She's not bringing trouble. Trouble was following her, and it'll follow her whether we turn her away or not. But I'll tell you this, if we send her back into that snow, that baby dies. And if you all stand by and let that happen, then this town ain't worth the dirt it's built on." Some people shifted, guilt creeping into their faces. Others hardened like stone. Jonah raised the baby gently for the crowd to see. "Look at her. She's got no voice, no strength, no chance, unless we give it to her." He paused, breathing hard. "I'm not asking you to fight. I'm asking you to be human." Then he turned fully, facing them all, hundreds of eyes watching him. "And hear me now, whether this town stands with me or not. I'm protecting them, both of them. If danger's coming, it'll hit me first." The crowd murmured, torn between fear and conscience. Some stepped forward, some stepped back. But Jonah did not move. He held the mother. He held the child. And for the first time in years, Courage saw what a real man looked like. Not the kind who talked big or waved guns, but the kind who stood against the world, with nothing but conviction, and a heart too stubborn to quit. The town waited. The wind howled, and Jonah braced himself for the battle he knew was coming, one that would test not just his strength, but the very soul of Courage itself. "No," he answered firmly. "I'm taking you both